Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. What we're going to be discussing is a conversation that we've had multiple times over the last couple of months with a bunch of clients, and so we thought we'd record it. But what we're going to be discussing is how the CARES Act has allowed us some provisions and how that would play into the infinite banking concept. So we're going to cover some of that stuff for you today.
Now, the CARES Act has some pretty cool and unique provisions. So much so that I've never seen it as easy as it is now to access money that's tied up in your 401k or IRA. Now, what this allows you to do is to take a distribution of $100,000 from your IRA or 401k, which makes this unique. Is typically, you've always been able to take a distribution from your IRA. However, a 401k, you can't take a distribution while you're still working there. But with the CARES Act, it allows you to take that $100,000. Now, another cool thing is it waives the 10% penalty. Meaning before, if you're under 59.5 and you take money out of an IRA or 401k, you pay an additional 10% tax to access your own money. But with this CARES Act, that goes away. And if there's more, I feel like we're on an infomercial, but there's more. You do still have to pay the tax. Because remember, the money you put in there, you got a tax deduction. So when you pull it out, it's taxable. But what this allows us to do is, for one, to give you two options on paying the tax. One is pay the tax now on your 2020 tax return, or you can spread it out evenly over the next 3 years, which gives you some options. And most of the time we would be prone to say, hey, let's spread that out. But depending on your situation, if you had a difficult time maybe in your business or the job, or you got furloughed, it's very possible that 2020 may be the lowest tax bracket you are ever going to be in. So it may make some sense to pay it all in 2020, but we don't need to make that decision now. Any more comments on the CARES Act?
No, not at all. That third point that you made there, actually points 2 and 3, is waiving the 10% penalty, and then our ability to pay those taxes over the next 3 years is, I think what you'll see is kind of a blessing in disguise, right? And so I look forward to jumping into it.
Well, and a lot of times, especially people who want to do infinite banking, they have their money inside their 401k or their IRA, and they don't want to take it out really for two reasons. One, they don't want to pay the tax, and two, they don't want to pay the penalty. Mm-hmm. Now, what we've always said is, well, you got to pay the tax. Do you pay it now, or do you pay it when you're 59.5? So the tax is kind of the tax. I think that really is a side discussion. It's a mute. But the 10% penalty, is an obstacle until now. So this is really cool. So now what we're going to talk about, so if you do decide to take the money out of the 401k, let's kind of draw in on some strategies to maximize the use of that. So let's say that you have a 401k. We're just going to use round numbers and put in, say you have $100,000, okay? Now, one thing to note, a common misconception is people think that $100,000 is theirs. But really, whose is it, Cameron?
It's the IRS's.
Right? Well, part of it's yours, and part of it is the IRS's. One thing that I just realized, that if you really look at the word the IRS and you combine it, it actually spells theirs. I don't know. To me, when I first heard that, I was blown away. I remember I told Cameron, I'm going to blow your mind. I'm going to blow your mind. But maybe it's not a big deal to everybody.
I don't know, but it is funny that kind of the things that amuse CPAs, right? Things that these guys find
Easily
funny.
amused. Yeah. Easily amused. Okay, so let's put some dollars behind it. Let's assume you're in the 30% tax bracket. So what that means is of that 100,000, only 70,000 of it is yours. That other 30,000's theirs. Now, first, let's talk about what we're going to do with your money. What we'd recommend, if you're following infinite banking, this could be a great strategy to move that into a infinite banking policy.
Absolutely. By moving that money into there, right, as most of our listeners know, is that it's really going to give us three big opportunities. Number one is we're going to pay the tax on it, and we're never going to have to pay tax on that again. So we've got tax-free growth. Number two is we got access and liquidity, right? We can always reach in there and utilize those dollars if we need it. And then the third one being is creditor protection for me, right? Is that way nobody can ever come in and take it. So
perfect. So that's what we could do with your money. But what are we going to do with their money?
Thanks for waiting, catching up.
Okay, so we have $30,000 that's not yours, it's theirs. So we got a couple options. One, well, it's their money. Go ahead and pay it to them. How exciting is that?
Not very.
Now, what if there was another way?
Like pay them later?
Pay them later.
That would be a great option, absolutely.
But not only pay them later, what if we take that $30,000 and we buy a cash flowing asset?
Well, my first question, right, that I typically get when we discuss that is, what kind of an asset can I buy for $30,000?
What we would recommend that works really well with infinite banking and also has some tax advantages is real estate.
Where do you find real estate that you can buy for $30,000 or less?
Well, first, you listen to our podcast, the Infinite Wealth Podcast. We've had multiple turnkey providers that do have properties that you can buy for $30,000 or less out of pocket. What is great about real estate is that you can use leverage, right? So you don't have to pay for the whole asset itself. You just need to pay for a down payment. Now, typically that down payment is going to be about a 20% plus closing costs. And what you're probably thinking is, well, still, how can I get a house for $30,000 even if it is a down payment? But so it's not going to be in your backyard, but it is going to have a backyard. I know in Las Vegas, the average cost of a house is about $300,000. Now, Cameron, what's the average cost of the house in Memphis, Tennessee?
$75,000 to $100,000.
Okay, what about Wisconsin, Milwaukee?
Right in there, $100,000 to $110,000.
Okay, so it's $100,000. I won't have you do the math, but 20% of that is $20,000 plus closing costs of $25,000. So you can buy a cash flowing asset for $30,000 or less.
So what does this look like if we were to buy a $30,000 asset here?
What we'd recommend we do is buy, for example, a rental house for $30,000. That is going to cash flow. If it doesn't cash flow, then it's not a good investment. Don't buy it. But what we're going to do, that's creating cash flow, and we're going to take that cash flow to pay the IRS. Eventually, we will have the IRS paid off, and now we have the house. In essence, what we're doing is we're taking their money to buy an asset that is yours. And once you pay that off, now you have that asset that is cash flowing. Boom.
Boom. Hope you enjoyed it. This was really just to kind of give you a big picture. We've had this conversation many times over the last couple of months, so we want to make sure we record it. There's a lot of kind of intricacies in here, just as far as your tax liability. Everybody's different, and then also the house and the cash flow that comes off of that. All those things are different, but really, like I said, it's just a general conversation and let you guys know what opportunities are available to you.
Yeah, and also it's policy design of how we're going to design, and not only design it, but how are we going to use it? Because ideally, we have that $70,000 in your policy. We don't want it to sit there. Maybe we use it to buy a couple more cash flowing assets. But to learn more what we'd recommend you do, schedule a discovery call with Cameron or I. We're kind of go over kind of what your situation is and whether this and infinite banking is for you. You can find a link to schedule that below. Also, I'd also recommend you check out the Infinite Wealth podcast, and in there is more resources on how you can find more cash flowing assets.
Awesome. Hope you enjoy it. Take care.
Make it a great day.